So today we're going to talk about something that for years I've heard people say these things. Diagnosing. One time I was at the dentist or the doctor, and they said, I'm just looking at this catalog. I have most of these. They told me nowadays cars diagnose themselves with the computer, and it's hard to explain to somebody that hooking up a code reader is not diagnosing. I mean, I can't roll my eyes in the back of my head as far as I really want to, or slap my forehead as hard as I want to when somebody says these things to me. You have people that are in the industry that have spent thousands of dollars on their education. You got people in the industry that have spent thousands of dollars on tools, for diagnostic tools. I've heard it way too many times, and it's kind of disrespecting like a whole industry, that people with $40 or $30 code readers hook up a code reader. It says P0301, and they said, oh, it's already been diagnosed. You show up to somebody's house, you talk to somebody, you talk to a customer, you talk to somebody, and they say, well, it's already been diagnosed. And then you say, okay, what's wrong with it? They say, well, it said P0301, so it's been diagnosed, just fix it. And you think to yourself, it's kind of like, well, now you got to explain to the customer that that's not a diagnosis at all. I mean, it could be any number of things. It's like saying if you got a golf ball and you kick a golf ball into the gutter, you're a professional golf player. Or if you get a little football, a Nerf football, and you throw a Nerf football across the street, you're a professional NFL player. Or if you got an X-ray machine or a camera and you take a picture of somebody, you're a professional doctor. Or you have a thermometer and you stick it in your mouth and you get somebody's temperature, that now you're a PhD. Hooking a code reader up to a car and getting a gross leak or a leak of any kind is not a diagnosis at all. I've heard it way too many times from way too many people where they say, it's already been diagnosed, just fix it. And you're thinking to yourself, but you don't know what's wrong with it. And it's funny because you'll hear a lot of people, they'll diagnose something and say, oh, well, we got to take it to the dealer. Well, if you've diagnosed it, then why do you got to take it to the dealer? You already know how to fix it. A prime example is a misfire code. A misfire P0301, P0302, P030 whatever, or a catalyst inefficient code, or whatever have you, could be any number one of things. It could be bad spark plug, it could be bad timing, it could be bad burnt valve, it could be a clogged or stuck fuel injector, it could be any number one of things to have a misfire. It could be bad plug wire, it could be bad ignition coil, it could be a bad, you can have that one cylinder that has bad compression, you can have any number one of things. Hooking up a scanner and reading a code is not a diagnosis. And I'm telling you, because I've literally heard it dozens of times from people. And intelligent people, we're talking about doctors, lawyers, and they have a misunderstanding that if you hook up a code reader, a $20, $30, $40 code reader, that's a diagnosis. No, absolutely 110% not. That is literally disrespecting a whole industry. That's disrespecting any person who has any comprehension how vehicles work. And that's not how things work. You cannot hook up a $20, $30 code reader, read the code, and call that a diagnosis. That is 110% not a diagnosis. And it's not, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody who hooks up their own code reader to their car and wants to diagnose their vehicle. Not at all. But if you hook up a code reader to your car and it gives you a misfire code, that is not a diagnosis. You still got to take it to the dealership. You still have to take it to a mechanic. You still have to take it to somebody who has the sense to tell you, and the tools and the know-how to test the vehicle. And like I said, like it's kind of frustrating when somebody says something like that, because you can't even begin to explain to somebody the amount of time and effort that goes into time and effort and money that goes into the tools and the techniques and the all the studying that goes into diagnosing a vehicle. And it's kind of disrespectful, like I said, to a whole industry when somebody hooks up a scanner and says they've diagnosed something, when that's complete and utter incorrect. If you hook up a code reader and you read a code, that is not a diagnostic. That is not a diagnosis. If it is a diagnosis, then why are you taking it to the dealer or whoever have you to diagnose it? If you hook up a code reader and you take it to somebody and you say, I got a P0301, fix it, they still have to spend time diagnosing the vehicle. I just want, for the people that aren't in the field, for the people that don't understand things like this, show them this video. If you hook up a code reader and you read a code and you think that's a diagnosis, that is not a diagnosis. It gives you a direction to a problem, but it is not a diagnosis. There's symptoms, which may be a misfire, but there's causes of those symptoms. What is the cause of those symptoms? Is it a plugged fuel injector? It is you don't have compression in the cylinder. You got a bad coil. You still have to have a diagnosis before repair can be made. And I'm telling you, it is kind of frustrating when somebody says, "Oh, I diagnosed it. Go ahead and just fix it." And you said, "Okay, what's wrong with the problem?" And they say, "Well, it has a misfire in cylinder 1." And you say, well, "So what do you want me to do?" And they say, "Well, just fix it." And you're like, "Well, I still have to diagnose it." And they say, "No, I already diagnosed it." No, you still have to pay a diagnostic fee because it wasn't diagnosed. That is not a diagnosis. Anyways, this is something that I've seen for years, and it really is frustrating. And I don't know if any of you other technicians or do-it-yourselfers out there have seen any of this firsthand, but it's kind of frustrating when people think that they are properly diagnosing something when in fact all they're doing is reading a code. Cam crank correlation code or this or that. Well, is it the timing belt skipped? Is it the timing chain? Is it the, whatever have you, right? Anyways, go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the down below, and tell me what you guys think about. Has anybody else out there been seen where somebody had said they had diagnosed the problem and want you to fix something when it hasn't been properly diagnosed and they don't want to pay a diagnostic fee? Anyways, like I said, leave your comments in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe. All right? Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe.